This is another example of the creative sequencing exercise from my book Improvising with Motives. In this exercise, you take a motive, a melodic idea, and move it or sequence it through the scale, trying to come up with an interesting sounding phrase starting on each note of the scale. To do this, we will use motivic development techniques each time the motive is played. This exercise and all the techniques I use here is described in my book. If you want to know more about the book, check out the link in the description below. The goal here is to improve your ability to move a melodic idea around the scale, while at the same time make it interesting by creating variations. Try doing the exercise more like a composition exercise at first, and then do it in real time as an improvisation exercise. In this example, I have used the F-sharp minor pentatonic scale. And the motive I've chosen is this. After the starting note, go one step down the scale, then skip a step, then play the next step, play the note that was skipped, play 2 steps going up the scale, and 1 down again. To be able to do the creative sequencing exercise, you have to be able to do a normal sequencing exercise first. This can either be done in position or along the neck. In this example, I've chosen to do it along the neck since this opens up more possibilities. Now let's take a look at the techniques I used in the example in the beginning of the video. The first time I played the motive, I played just the motive without any changes. On the next sequence, I used rhythmic displacement and repeated the first note. And then I removed the last 2 notes of the motive and played something else instead. Then on the next sequence, I used the same rhythmic displacement and repetition of the first note as the last example, but here I also add a chromatic approach note pattern on the 4th note of the motive. And then I add a little bend. Then, on the next sequence, I use a chromatic approach note pattern on the 2nd note of the motive. This is a more complex approach note pattern, where I play a diatonic note above, a chromatic note above, a chromatic note below, and go to the target note. So then I end up with this. Then on the 3rd note of the motive, I use a chromatic note below before I go back to the starting note again. Then I end up with this. Then on the next sequence, I use a double chromatic approach from below on the 1st note of the motive. Then I use a chromatic note from above on the 2nd note of the motive. And then I play the rest of the motive. Then on the next sequence, I remove the 2nd note of the motive. And I repeat the 1st note instead. And I go up here with a slide to that note. It's the same note, but I play it another place. And then I use a chromatic note between the next notes before I add something else. Then I go to the motive here. Here I also use rhythmic displacement and repetition. Here I use a slide up to a new note before I go to the next note.